What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Crew 2 once again here, and in this video I'm going to take a look at the Ram 1500 Rebel TRX concept interforcer unit. I do have to admit, this is probably one of my favorite rally raid vehicles in the entire game. Like, I absolutely love this thing. And by the way, if you guys were wondering what color this is, so what I actually did was I did end up adding the livery to it and or then removing it. So for this, all you guys will have to do is head back here and you then can apply it back to the vehicle. So this is what the truck actually looks like. I think we can all agree either way this thing honestly looks awesome with or without it on there. I would say for me I might actually end up leaving this on there just for the video though, because it does look pretty awesome. But even if you guys do remove it, I do like the color of the truck without it as well. It's like a dark greenish, like bluish color, almost like a gasoline green type of color, I guess you would call that. But overall, I really do think this thing looks awesome. Plus, the interior is going to have some nice detail as well. Now, I did end up adding the livery back to the truck here because I do actually think it looks pretty nice on there. And just in case you guys might have been wondering, by the way, the tires on this are also not going to be stock. I do have the yellow ones on here as well, just to kind of like match the color of it. But now a few things I did want to show you guys with the actual Ram as well. So obviously before the motor pass, you cannot actually get this vehicle, which I do believe this thing came out like a year ago, which is kind of insane how fast time has gone. But nonetheless though guys, the regular Ram 1500 is also a very cool truck here, but you can definitely see some similarities and or a lot of differences with how they are built. So for the regular Ram here guys, you can't add any of the bumper stuff on here. One thing you're also going to notice about the regular Rebel as well is the fact that the rims are going to be slightly different colored. You actually can't do that with the Enforcer unit, but I really do think the overall design of this truck really does look a lot better than the regular version. When this thing came out, I know a lot of players were driving this thing around the lobbies. I was basically seeing this thing everywhere back in the day. For one, it is going to be a TRX. Personally though, if I could have a request for the new game, which is obviously going to be Motorfest, I would really like an actual production version of the TRX in the game. I think that would be awesome. I have nothing against the concept, but the regular truck also looks great. Nonetheless though guys, let's go do an outside look of the Enforcer unit right now, and also do a quick top speed test. And now moving over to an outside look of the TRX Enforcer unit, I feel like a lot of players are going to absolutely love the look of this thing. You have all the supplies in the back which fit it nicely, plus like the livery design is looking pretty nice on the vehicle as well. Like I really do love this truck, and it's also going to sound insanely good. And now moving over to the interior view of the Enforcer unit. So with this guys, it is going to look exactly like the regular Rebel. I also really like the red stitching plus the detail of the interior in this truck. I actually think it looks really nice. Now of course the screen in the middle is obviously not having anything on it there. I thought it would have been cool to have like the map of the game in there. That would be pretty dope to see, but we do have the digital dash. It will have the RPM and or like the actual digital speed you are going, so at least it's going to have some detail to it. I personally think one of the biggest highlights is the red stitching in here. I really do love that, my goodness. Plus you can also see the detail of the back seats as well. And one thing I also did want to show you guys are going to be the actual lights as well. So once you guys hit the analog stick, you will notice on the bottom of the bumper the lights are flashing plus the top there. One of my other favorite things about the Enforce unit are going to be those two fog lights. I think they look insanely good on the front of this vehicle. Now do keep in mind though, you also can't add those two spotting lights and or the bumper on the regular TRX either, so I really do think the Enforcer unit looks so dang good. If I had to bet, I would say most players are definitely going to pick up this vehicle just because of the looks. But now guys, besides all that, let's go see what the top speed of the Rebel is going to be. So I would say one of the biggest complaints of this truck before, at least with the regular TRX, is probably going to be the way this thing shifts if you guys are in manual. I was finding myself misshifting this thing pretty often because it is an 8-speed. It also flies through the gears very quickly as well, but one thing I also did note guys with the Rebel, now this can be kind of unfortunate in some ways. This is actually going to be one of the slower rally raid vehicles in the game. Now, it's not going to be like the slowest rally raid truck in the game or anything, but it's definitely going to be slightly slower than some of the other ones that can do like 178 to like 181 or so. I did notice, guys, oh my goodness, a train. I did notice with this vehicle, though, it does like 167 to like 169 going down a hill, so it's definitely going to be pretty dang fast. I do think it's not going to be the slowest truck out there, but one thing I do have to admit though, even with the top speed being slightly slower, I still ran the regular TRX very often. So back in the day, the TRX Concept Interforcer unit was by far one of my favorite vehicles to actually use back then. I also was literally seeing them everywhere when I was driving around. I feel like it's because it was basically like the TRX being added into the game. As I did mention earlier though, I really do hope we can see the actual production TRX in Motorfest. Don't get me wrong though, guys, I do like this thing, but I think the actual production model would be really awesome to see. But overall, I do think a lot of players are most likely going to buy the TRX because I really do feel like this thing's actually going to be worth it. Now sure, the top speed might be a little bit slower than like the Raptor Enforcer unit, but to be honest guys, I really don't think that's going to hurt this thing all that much. I mean, I have actually been using the regular TRX for quite a while because I didn't feel right using this vehicle before, because I would say many people most likely didn't have this vehicle, so I really did not feel right driving this thing if someone couldn't actually buy it and or use it in a summit. Surprisingly guys, the regular TRX is also going to be a really great truck as well. And from the testing I have done, I would say the Enforcer unit and the regular truck are most likely going to be insanely similar to each other. I would say the biggest differences is by far going to be the way they look and the way you can actually customize that truck over this one. Even though I would say you can't customize the Enforcer unit, it really does look so much better than that vehicle, and I also really do drive the TRX so much on many of these slaloms and or many of the skills as well because I find that thing to be insanely good. As I did mention guys, even though these do have a slower top speed, I really don't think it's going to hurt them. Even like the Land Rover Defender is also going to be on the lower end of the spectrum when it comes to their top speed, so they're really not going to be like useless. I just feel like they're not going to be as quick, and if you guys are going for like the fastest speed possible on some of these summits with their scores, you might end up falling behind slightly because of the way these vehicles are slightly slower. But even then, I feel like one of the biggest things I noticed about the TRX is by far going to be the way this thing handles. Like, my goodness, the Enforcer unit really does like eat the ground around corners, and I feel like if you mess up somewhere, or maybe you jump off a ramp the wrong way and you have to like fix it quickly, I feel like this thing's going to really catch itself very fast, especially in that race in the recent summit. I noticed guys, when I would go off a ramp the wrong way or something like that, and like if there was a rock close by, I noticed the Enforcer unit would easily grip the ground and or fix that pretty easily. So even though the Enforcer unit might have a lower top speed, I feel like the stability and or the handling this truck has really does make up for that. I was having such a blast when I would go off a ramp with this thing, and I was like, oh well, I didn't approach that correctly, but luckily I could just grip a little bit and I would be basically good to go, which is something you definitely would have issues with some of the other vehicles. I noticed some of them, if you guys did go around a turn the wrong way, or even like the little things like maybe dodging a tree could be a bit of a challenge in those. I really do feel like the TRX Enforcer unit's going to be a really great truck for these races. I actually have a feeling many players might end up trying out this thing in future summits, and or even trying this thing in skills as well, because I feel like it's going to be that good. For a long time guys, I was basically using the TRX for many of these slaloms, and one of the main reasons why I was using the regular TRX and not the Enforcer unit was because I feel like a lot of players didn't actually have this vehicle, so I really did not feel right actually running this thing. But now that it's going to be back in the game now, I really do feel like most players are probably going to pick this thing up and give this thing a try. I really do love the TRX guys, it's so much fun to use on slaloms. It's also going to be a really good racer as well. Now as I did mention before, the top speed is going to be slightly slower than some of the other vehicles, but I really don't think it's going to hurt it. Even in some of those older summits where I did run the regular TRX, I was still scoring very well on many of those events, even though the top speed might be like somewhere around like 10 to 12 miles per hour slower than like the Raptor Enforcer unit. But even with this thing being slower, you can still easily score very close to those vehicles in the summits and still get yourself a very high score on those. But overall, guys, I feel like the TRX Concept Interforcer unit is definitely going to be worth a look in the store if you guys do want to buy this thing. I am so happy they actually added this vehicle back into the game. I remember when this truck came out 1 year ago, I was like, my goodness, I love it. I could not believe how many of these I was seeing driving around, so maybe that trend's going to come back once again, but let me know what you guys think about the Enforcer unit in the comments below. And here are the settings I'm currently running on this vehicle.